You know that heavy feeling when your week is packed with obligations that don't really need to be there, but you keep saying yes anyway. What if letting go of just one of those commitments could actually make everything else feel more manageable? Today we're talking about how to make life feel lighter by cutting one overloaded commitment each week. Right now, with so many demands pulling at your time and energy, this simple practice can help you reclaim a little breathing room without a major life overhaul. When you start doing this consistently, you may notice more mental space, less guilt, and a surprising sense of relief that carries into your daily routines. The key is understanding that most of us overestimate what we truly need to do and underestimate the cost of keeping those extra commitments. In this video, I'll walk you through a calm, step-by-step way to identify which commitment to cut and how to do it without drama or regret. So let's begin by looking at the first sign that a commitment is actually weighing you down more than it's helping. What we're talking about today is the simple practice of cutting just one overloaded commitment from your schedule each week. This isn't about quitting everything or becoming lazy. It's about being intentional with your time and energy. An overloaded commitment is anything that feels heavy, draining, or like a chore you keep doing out of obligation. It could be a meeting that could have been an email, a volunteer role you no longer enjoy, or a weekly hangout that leaves you exhausted. The tricky part is that many of these commitments once felt exciting or important, but now they just weigh you down. When you remove just one, you free up mental space and physical time that you can use to breathe or focus on what truly matters. Your takeaway here is to start noticing which commitments feel like a burden rather than a gift. In the next scene, we'll look at why releasing those overloaded commitments is so critical for your everyday well-being. Having too many commitments is like carrying a backpack full of rocks. Each one might be small, but together they wear you out. This matters because your well-being depends on having enough energy for rest, relationships, and the things you actually enjoy. When you cut one overloaded commitment each week, you slowly lighten that load and give your mind room to relax. You might notice that you sleep better, feel less irritable, and have more patience for the people around you. A common mistake is thinking that more commitments mean more success, when really they often mean more stress and less joy. The benefit of reducing commitments is that you start to feel lighter without having to change your whole lifestyle overnight. Your takeaway here is that your well-being is directly connected to how much you carry, so drop a rock. Next, let's explore what your life looks like when this practice of cutting commitments is missing entirely. Without this practice, your days probably feel like a long list of tasks that never quite ends. You rush from one obligation to another, and there's rarely a moment to just sit and be still. Life starts to feel heavy because every hour is spoken for, and there's no margin for spontaneity or rest. You might find yourself saying, "I'm so busy," as a default answer, and it doesn't feel good. The hard truth is that when you never cut anything, everything starts to feel like an emergency, and burnout becomes normal. But recognizing this pattern is the first step toward change. You can't fix what you don't see. Your takeaway here is to check in with yourself. Do you feel stretched thin most of the time? Now let's look at the common habits and beliefs that keep you stuck in that overloaded state. If this idea of cutting one overloaded commitment each week really clicked with you, take a second to hit like and subscribe. I'd love to hear what commitment you might start with. Feel free to share it in the comments. Sometimes just naming it out loud makes it easier to let go. Watching more videos like this one can help you keep the momentum going gently. There's no rush and no pressure to get it perfect. Just notice what feels true for you right now. Your small step is worth celebrating, even if it's just a thought. Stick around. There's more practical support coming up. One of the biggest blockers is the belief that saying no makes you a bad person or a disappointment. Many of us have a habit of automatically agreeing to requests without pausing to check if we have the bandwidth. Another pattern is thinking that every commitment is equally important, when in reality, some are just leftovers from an earlier season of life. You might also believe that if you don't do it, no one else will, and that pressure keeps you locked in. The truth is that these beliefs are learned, and they can be unlearned with a little practice and self-compassion. Once you see that overcommitting actually harms your relationships and your own health, it becomes easier to let go. Your takeaway here is to notice when guilt or fear of missing out is driving your yes. With that awareness, you're ready for the first mindset shift that makes cutting commitments possible. The most important shift is moving from more is better to enough is enough. You have to stop measuring your worth by how much you do and start valuing how well you live. This mindset change is simple to understand but uncomfortable to practice because our culture rewards busyness. When you believe that doing less is actually a sign of strength, not weakness, everything changes. The pitfall here is that your brain will resist. It will tell you that you're being lazy or letting people down. But the relief you feel after dropping one overloaded commitment proves that less truly is more freeing. Your takeaway is to give yourself permission to define a good week by presence, not productivity. Once you embrace that mindset, you're ready for the first practical step to begin changing your schedule. For this week, pick just one commitment that feels heavy and decide to let it go. It doesn't have to be permanent. You can pause it, delegate it, or simply stop doing it for 7 days. Choose the commitment that drains you the most or that you dread the most when it pops up on your calendar. You might feel nervous or guilty when you make the decision, and that's completely normal. The realistic truth is that the world will keep spinning, and most people will not even notice you stepped back. What you will notice is a quiet sense of relief and a little extra space opening up in your day. Your takeaway is simple. Pick one, cut it, and see how you feel by the end of the week. In the next scenes, we'll talk about how to handle the resistance that shows up and how to keep this practice going. So what does this actually look like when you start cutting one overloaded commitment each week? It's not about suddenly having empty days or doing nothing at all. Instead, you'll notice that your calendar has a little more breathing room between things. You might find yourself arriving to appointments a few minutes early instead of rushing in stressed. The real shift is that you stop feeling like you're constantly behind or playing catch-up. You'll have a small pocket of time where you can just sit and think without urgency. That quiet space becomes a sign that you're making progress, not falling behind. And once you feel that relief, it becomes easier to spot the next commitment that can go. One simple habit that supports this process is a 5-minute check-in each morning. Before you look at your phone or open your planner, just ask yourself what feels heavy today. This isn't about listing every task, but noticing one commitment that already feels like a burden. You don't have to drop it right away, just acknowledge that it's there and weighing on you. Over time, this habit trains your mind to recognize overload before it builds up. It also helps you separate what's truly necessary from what you've just gotten used to doing. That small moment of honesty each day keeps you from drifting back into automatic overcommitment. From there, you can carry that awareness into your weekly decision about what to cut. If you're looking for more ways to simplify your days without adding more to your plate, check out www.happylifetribe.com. That's where you'll find practical ideas and gentle encouragement that actually fit your real life. The resources there are designed to support you in building a calmer, more intentional rhythm. You'll also discover small mindset shifts and simple habits that make lightening up feel doable. Everything is offered in a warm, no-pressure way, just like this video. Think of it as a quiet corner online where you can come for fresh perspective. Whether you read an article or listen to a guided reflection, you decide what helps. Head over when you're ready for a little more support. A common mistake people make is trying to cut too many things at once right from the start. They get excited about the idea of a lighter life and want to clear their whole schedule overnight. But that usually backfires because it feels too drastic and leaves you feeling lost or guilty. Another mistake is cutting something that actually brings you joy, just because it's convenient to remove. You might drop a hobby or a social event that was actually helping you recharge. The goal isn't to strip everything away, but to remove what drains you without giving back. So take it slow and only cut one commitment per week, even if others seem tempting to drop. This steady pace helps you avoid regret and makes the change feel natural instead of forced. To make this feel realistic, start by looking at your week and picking the commitment that annoys you the most. It could be a meeting that could have been an email or a favor you said yes to out of habit. Then, give yourself permission to drop it without needing a perfect reason or backup plan. You don't have to replace it with something productive or meaningful right away. The empty space is allowed to just exist, and that's where the lightness comes from. If you feel anxious about letting go, remind yourself that you can always add something back later if needed. This isn't permanent. It's just an experiment to see how you feel with less. Treating it like a trial run takes the pressure off and makes the whole process feel manageable. As you keep cutting one commitment each week, you'll notice your mind starts to quiet down. The constant mental list of things you have to do begins to shrink and lose its urgency. You might feel a sense of relief that you haven't felt in a long time, like a weight lifting off your shoulders. Emotionally, you become less irritable and more patient with yourself and others. You stop rushing through your day just to get to the next obligation. Instead, you start to feel more present in whatever you're doing, even if it's just a simple task. This mental space gives you room to think clearly and make better decisions about your time, and that clarity becomes a reward that keeps you motivated to continue the process. When life gets busy again, it's easy to fall back into the habit of saying yes to everything. To keep momentum, set a weekly reminder to review your commitments and ask what can go. Even if you only have 5 minutes, that quick check keeps the practice alive. Another trick is to share what you're doing with a friend or family member who can hold you accountable. They can gently remind you when you start overloading yourself again without realizing it. Remember that progress isn't about being perfect, it's about catching yourself and adjusting. If you skip a week, just start again the next week without guilt or judgment. This gentle consistency is what turns the habit into a lasting part of your life, and we'll talk about how to handle setbacks next. Over the weeks, you start to notice that your days feel less like a race and more like a steady walk. This change matters because it gives your mind room to breathe instead of constantly planning the next task. When you cut one overloaded commitment each week, you slowly free up mental space that was tied up in stress. You might find yourself sitting still for a few minutes without feeling guilty, or actually finishing a task without rushing. The real shift happens when you stop measuring your worth by how much you do and start noticing how you feel. Your relationships can improve too, because you have more patience and less irritation from being stretched thin. A simple takeaway is to pay attention to moments when you feel calm and remind yourself that this is the result of your choices. This new rhythm becomes more natural as you keep practicing, and it leads us to a realistic challenge that can still pop up. You don't have to figure this out all on your own. There's a whole community ready to walk alongside you. Subscribing to Happy Life Tribe means you'll get new ideas for living with more ease and intention. Over on www.happylifetribe.com, You can connect with others who are also learning to let go of overload. It's a space where people share what's working and encourage each other without judgment. That sense of belonging can make all the difference when you're trying to create change. You might pick up a new tip or simply feel less alone in your efforts. So if you'd like that kind of support, hit subscribe and come visit the website. Together, those small steps add up to a lighter, more peaceful life. Even after you make progress, there will be weeks where everything feels urgent and you want to add things back in. This challenge matters because it tests whether you truly trust the process or just see it as a temporary fix. A common setback is when a friend or coworker asks for help and you say yes without thinking, then feel overwhelmed again. You might also face a busy season at work or home that makes you believe you have no choice but to take on more. The realistic truth is that old habits of overcommitting don't disappear overnight, and they can sneak back in when you're tired. The benefit of recognizing this is that you can prepare for it instead of being surprised and giving up. A practical way to handle it is to keep a short list of your current commitments visible so you can check before adding anything new. Knowing that setbacks are normal helps you recover faster, which is exactly what we will talk about next. When you notice you have taken on too much again, the first step is to pause instead of judging yourself. This matters because shame or frustration can make you want to abandon the whole practice, but that is not helpful. Recovery is simple. Look at your current commitments and pick one that feels the heaviest, then cut it this week. You do not need to fix everything at once. Just one overloaded commitment is enough to start feeling lighter again. A realistic truth is that slipping back is part of learning, and each time you recover, you get better at noticing the warning signs earlier. The relief comes from knowing that you already have the skill to lighten your load, you just need to use it again. A helpful takeaway is to treat a slip like a detour, not a dead end, and get back on track without overthinking. Once you see how forgiving this process can be, it becomes clearer who this approach helps the most. This practice is especially helpful for people who often feel responsible for everything and struggle to say no. It matters because those individuals tend to burn out quietly, thinking they just need to try harder. If you are someone who feels guilty when you are not busy or who measures your value by your output, this is for you. It also helps people who have many small commitments that each seem harmless but together create a heavy load. A realistic truth is that this approach is not for someone who enjoys a packed schedule and feels energized by it, and that is okay. The benefit for the right person is that they finally get permission to prioritize their own peace without feeling selfish. A simple way to know if this fits you is to ask yourself if you often feel tired, resentful, or stretched too thin. If that sounds familiar, then the next scene will give you a clear action plan to start today. To start, take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and list every commitment you have this week. This matters because you cannot cut something until you see it clearly in front of you. Next, look at the list and pick one commitment that feels draining, unnecessary, or that you only said yes to out of obligation. Then, make a plan to remove it this week, whether that means canceling, rescheduling, or delegating it to someone else. A realistic truth is that you might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you worry about disappointing others. The relief comes quickly once you follow through, because you will feel the weight lift almost immediately. A helpful tip is to set a reminder for the same day next week to repeat this process so it becomes a habit. This simple action is all you need to begin, and now we can close with some final encouragement. Making life feel lighter is not about doing less forever. It is about choosing what truly matters to you. This change is worth practicing because it gives you back your energy, your time, and your peace of mind. You do not need to overhaul your entire life overnight. Just one small cut each week adds up to real freedom. The people around you may not notice at first, but you will feel the difference in your own body and mood. A realistic truth is that some weeks will be harder than others, and that is part of the journey, not a failure. The benefit of sticking with this is that you slowly build a life that feels manageable and even enjoyable again. You already have everything you need to start, and the only requirement is your willingness to try. So take that first step, cut one overloaded commitment this week, and see how much lighter life can feel. Taking a few moments to reflect on what just felt useful can help you carry this practice forward. You don't need to change everything at once. Just one commitment this week is enough. If you found this helpful, please tap the like button and subscribe to Happy Life Tribe for more gentle guidance. Visiting www.happylifetribe.com gives you extra encouragement and practical ideas that fit right into your daily life. There you'll find a supportive space full of calm living inspiration and mindful lifestyle tips. The goal is simply to make your days feel a little lighter, one small step at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you feel more room to breathe. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.